Hello. Welcome back to the
Little Things.
Gosh, I almost said the wrong name.
What were you going to say?
Just a podcast that I listen to.
I like that.
I'm just pretending to be someone else.
Well, next week is National Lutheran Schools Week, and there's dress-up days. This could be like the dress-up day for the podcast.
Pretend to be.
It's the...
Be there. Oh my gosh, see, I'm not doing it right. The Little Things podcast.
The Little
Rachel
Things.
and I were just saying how we've been doing this for almost 6 months.
Yes.
You can't tell because I don't even know what the name of our podcast
It's
is.
because, you see, you get an autopilot. This was what had to shake you up. This is like the jarring. It's like, oh, okay, got it.
I gotta think before I speak.
It's the little things, like the name.
The little things, like knowing who you are and where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, those are all very big things. I can't do them.
And grace, right? We're even podcast pros like you and I, Bethany. Sometimes on the rare occasion, forget the name of the
rare
podcast.
occasions that we make very minor mistakes.
Yeah, well, yeah, hardly ever. But, at least it can be recorded because when it never happens, you should have some recording of making a mistake. I love it.
Yeah,
But
right.
Yes, this is the little things.
Mm-hmm. And we're here today without any special guests or a topic.
So the topic is reflection.
Mm-hmm. Because it's the New
it's
Year's.
Yeah, and it's important. We've been doing this for a while, and the reason I thought this would be a great idea is because I was literally at home during snow days, really reflecting on a bunch of the things that some of our guests have shared with us, and having a heyday and like realizing how much I have taken away from getting to sit with these brilliant people and from our conversations, because I love talking to you, and I always take good things away, and it's kind of fun to do it and be able to share it with all three of our listeners.
Yeah, right. It's super fun to do it. Yeah. Scott won't tell us how many people are listening, so...
How many do you pretend are listening in your head?
My mom and my friend Kaylee.
That's perfect.
That's all.
I don't ever think really about people listening. I think, because I think I'd get nervous if I thought about that. I'd be like, oh, this is great. I get to talk in a microphone and hear my own voice for however long we sit here, and then it just goes away.
Pretend that we're on a different podcast. We're really good.
And we can listen to that one and say, oh, wow. Even with a different name, I sound great. I sound really wise.
So smart.
Okay, so we have been doing this for a while. By the time this comes out, right now, we're looking outside the window. It's beautiful. It's a gentle snow.
More snow.
In gorgeous Minnesota, where we live. No.
Right.
Actually, are you excited about this?
I don't hate it. We've just been without snow, I feel like, for so many years.
long.
And now we have so much snow. It's kind of fun.
I love it. I love everything about it. I don't even mind that it's super cold because it feels like it should be. And it feels like, this is a little bit more normal. So I like it.
We're experiencing winter.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get chipped and we don't get any winter.
And even when you go outside and you breathe in that super cold, it's like, it's kind of a little rush.
Are you watching all these people on Instagram who are doing the cold plunges or just standing outside in the cold? Apparently it's really good for you.
Like the ice tub. Ooh. I couldn't. I want it to be good for me, and I want to do things like that, but that sounds horrific.
I'm cold thinking about it.
Yeah.
But apparently restarts your system and...
Yeah. Does all kinds of good things for you. I know there's one where you put your face in water, like cold water, and it helps reset your vagus nerve and it's supposed to give your nervous system a little reset and calm down. But I don't know. I tried.
Have you tried it?
I tried and I got it all set up and then I couldn't bring myself to do it. Maybe.
I dare you to just go in the snow right now and put your face in the snow.
Now, I think I would do that except for the fact that I am horrified by snow because I think everything has dog pee in it.
Oh.
Ooh. I don't know. Yeah. That's kind of gross.
I won't tell you then my eating snow. I like to eat snow.
I love eating snow when I was younger, but now I'm horrified. And then our son brought in a cup of snow and he's like, watch when it melts. And he couldn't wait for it to melt. So he put it in the microwave. And there is a lot of stuff. It wasn't as bad as I was anticipating. There were no dog poopies in it. Or
I think you can see if there's dog poop in it. Or
you would think, but you know what? I let my imagination run wild. You would never guess, but
yeah. Okay, well, fine.
Yes. So we're looking outside at the beautiful snow, and this is a perfect time to sit and just chat about all of the great guests that we've had and the things that we've talked about. So we've talked about topics ranging from anxiety to
screen time, behaviors, challenging behaviors of children,
materials versus experiences, grief during the holidays, especially. The episode that we recorded last week was about organization. Very good.
Change your life.
Yeah, I loved it. So do you have one that's been super impactful for you?
I would say I've taken little bits away from everything for sure. I loved our conversation with Kathy Carter on the screen time. I loved Haley Jackson coming in. I loved Holly's conversation about, I'm going to name all of them.
I know.
That's not helpful.
But that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
As I was thinking about it, I'm like, this has been, I know that kind of the original purpose of this podcast was to be able to educate families and give them some easy access for education and when they're caring for themselves and their children. But I feel like I am cheating a little because I'm taking so much away from myself.
Well, if no one else is listening, at least
you and I are listening.
You actually listen to them.
I do. I listen to them.
I try to listen when I'm talking, but sometimes.
Well, the funny thing, one thing, a takeaway for me is when I go back and I listen to our podcasts, I'll be like, oh boy, I don't even remember saying that whole side. And I can tell right then that my mind, when whatever I was saying, was thinking about something else. Like, I'm probably like, okay. But I'm like, oh, well, that didn't sound as dumb as it could have, especially since you weren't really focused on what you were talking about. But I don't remember the conversation.
Yes.
Okay, so here's something we can check back in on. Where do you keep your phone at night now?
Still in my bed.
I don't keep it in my bed, but it's still right next to my bedside.
Yes.
And that's a habit I have to break.
I had a couple nights where I didn't, but New Year's resolutions. The New Year hasn't really started. It's like January 17th or something.
Yeah. So,
but maybe next week.
Maybe next week. I realize mine is all about the fear of that alarm clock.
Yeah.
Like I don't trust actual alarm clocks, so that and I don't want to wake up my whole family when my alarm goes off if it's in the bathroom. So I'm like, oh. But I have committed to, once I get into bed, not getting on my phone. And I have an iPhone. So I think that there's a way, maybe it was you, Bethany, that told me you could do not disturb except for certain numbers after a certain time and then before another time. But I'm like, okay, after 11 o'clock, don't even look at that phone before, and sometimes I do better.
Good for you.
Because otherwise I scroll mindlessly. I'm just doing some pantomiming right now because it got really hot in here really fast. Probably because I'm thinking about the phone being too close.
I think the air was on too.
Yeah. I think that screen time one was super helpful, even just for me to take away. Like, do you spend time in front of a screen just because you want to have some kind of passive something and not use your brain? I don't know. I loved it.
It was very good. Okay, you asked me this question, so which one stuck out to you? Or is that not a fair question to you either?
You know what? I the same. Like I took something away from. So I'll be honest, probably because it was the closest one, but we had Molly Bassett on last week and talked about organization, and I love to organize.
So tell me how this changed your life.
So, because I know my daughter doesn't listen to this, I can say this. But so we had this, like, there were all these little aha moments as she's talking, because I go and I organize everything for our family all the time. And then a month later I go back and I'm like, why is the pantry? Why does it look like a bomb just went off? And she's talking, and those little things that are those little realizations. But I'm like, because I'm organizing how it works for me, and the whole concept of guilt. Like, I don't want to get rid of things because I feel guilty that we have them in the first place. And why do we have 89 black shirts? Why do we have this? I don't want to throw it. I don't want to add it to the landfill, but sometimes you have to, and then you have to make a commitment to not replace it. So we did our podcast, and then we had a snow day. So we had the weekend, and then we had a holiday. So we had 4 days at home. I did some training with my staff on our snow day, but then starting that night, I went on the most wonderful rampage through my whole house, and totally, like, the organization was different. Like, my trunk right now is currently full of things for People City Mission, but so our trash can was full, our recycling was full, and getting rid of things. But then I also, you guys were talking about a show called The Home Edit. And so I had this great idea, and maybe this will help other families that are struggling with the same thing. So I have delightful children who I love more than anything, but they don't often listen to my words, but they'll listen to other people's words. So I have my sweet little Lily Bean, who is fabulous, but she's kind of a little tornado. And I thought, ooh, maybe we can watch a show together, and we'll watch The Home Edit. And we did, and she loved it. And it inspired her. So
I love it.
It was great. And they don't say bad words. It's all appropriate things. And so she spent a day organizing. Her room is fabulous. Her closet looks better than mine because it's got a little fashion and flair. But it was great. It was just, I loved everything that Molly said. I just feel like it was like, it just showed me a different way to organize my house. Loved it.
I thought about some things Molly said too, of a story where putting the laundry basket, this person would just throw the clothes on the floor every time. And so they just moved the laundry basket to that area.
Yes.
And I am having a similar experience with my wonderful husband that I love. He just has to dump his stuff somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's always on my dresser. What if we just moved it where, like, oh,
here's
made
your
a
address.
thing
Yeah.
where if this is where you have to put it, let's put it here.
Yeah.
Let's make
Here's
it
a
okay.
basket. Yeah.
Yes. Which that makes sense. Why expect other people to change their habits
Yeah.
when it's actually not you? You can only control yourself.
Right. Well, and then also kind of tying into that organization, just kind of like you were saying, our conversation about family contribution. That one, again, was super eye-opening because it's one thing to say things that you've learned and the knowledge you've gathered by being around other people. It's easy to speak it. And then I go, oh, Rachel, you are terrible about encouraging contribution in your family. And you said something about having, like, at night, you guys do a reset right before you go to bed. I'm like, what a brilliant, easy way to ease into everybody taking care of their stuff. Okay, we're going to take 5 minutes before everybody goes to their rooms, whether you're 19 or 11, and you're going to walk around and you're going to find the things that you have out and make sure you put them back where they have their spot, and they all have a spot. So I loved that.
That is helpful.
And simple, such a simple thing. 5 minutes, anybody can do that.
Yes, we have a little 6-year-old girl who spends time at our house. And so part of something you taught me was if someone is contributing, don't criticize it or fix it right away, because that would diminish their experience and their likelihood of doing it again. So it got ridiculous, and she wanted to reorganize everything in the bathroom drawers.
I'm envisioning the picture you sent me.
Yes.
The best picture ever.
She did clean out the drawers, which is great, but she did reorganize everything to where this is not helpful to me at all. But I let her do it, and then I did fix it, and she didn't even notice that I fixed it later. But it was funny. I love that she took ownership of it and was very proud of herself. And I need some things in certain places.
Yeah. And I'll gently have to move it back after this. The best was the picture that Bethany sent is kind of through a crack in the door. And you can just see this little girl like, whoa, what have I gotten myself into? We've all felt that way sometimes. Well, and as I was working on organized, like, because of course you can't, I was hearing Molly that said, just do little things, like do one area. And then, so I'm hearing that, but I'm
Yes.
thinking, oh my gosh, I have this whole house that I'm going to rip apart down to the studs.
When Molly was saying that, I just was biting my tongue not to laugh because that is the opposite of me.
Yes.
I have to do everything at once and I'm going to stay up until 4 a.m. until it's all done. And then I'm going to cry at certain times because I don't know what I'm getting done. Why did I start this project?
And when does it ever end?
Right.
But it felt so good. Like I bopped around that and I was like, okay, Rachel, let me see if I can figure out your thought process here. Cause it was started like in the front closet. And then it went to an armoire in Maddie's room that we house like extra linens. And then it bounced everywhere. But it was delightful. And I also realized, kind of going back to that screen time conversation, that I am a person, like I love to be active, but I also like to be creative. And I think organizing, I like that because it takes creativity and you're doing something and you're moving. And usually like days are long when you work in early childhood. So I get home, I feed my family, I do what needs to be done, and then I'm exhausted. And I notice that I zone out. I felt so invigorated just doing something creative, even if and I thought, you know what, if you do something like this that fills your bucket for 10 minutes a night, how much better than scrolling through Instagram that's just going to make you feel terrible about about your unorganized utility room downstairs.
Right.
Yeah.
We sold our house.
Yes.
Yay.
Of course you did, because it was adorable.
Yeah, I'm so pleased with how it went. But the week leading up to that, we did a lot of decluttering and packing things up, and we were able to store them in our friend's garage. And now we're living without all that stuff. And I'm like, we should never get it back, which some things we do and need. But I want to be so selective in what we bring into our new house because it's so much easier to clean when there's no stuff in it.
Yes. Well, and it just feels good.
Yes.
When you walk in and it's just...
You can breathe.
Yeah. There's not things everywhere. A little known fact about the Hines family is, which Lily was little when we did this, and she used to always tell people that our pastor gave us our house because we bought our last house from Pastor John here at Messiah. But when we moved into that house, it was 2 stories and then a basement and tons of storage like I've never seen. And I just remember moving in and thinking, oh my goodness, this is so great. We literally have a place for everything. There's so much extra space that's not filled with stuff. And by the time we moved out of that house 6 years later, every nook and cranny was filled. And I was so disappointed in us because I'm like, we didn't need this. And it's in storage space. So obviously it's not things we're using. How simple is it to just refill those empty spaces? So again, being purposeful about not letting it back in. I don't know. See, very impactful.
Right.
See, and I'm getting all excited.
I
Just
can
even
tell
thinking
you
about
love
these.
it.
I do. That was so great. And every time we get done, I think that one because it's so fresh in my memory. But I would leave and think, wow, we know a lot of really wise people, and how awesome is it that they come and they visit with us and share their knowledge. Haley Jackson, goodness, I just love Haley Jackson. I've known her for several years, and she's so active in so many things, early childhood, and so wise. And again, the simple stuff that
I should re-listen to that one again because she was like a fire hose of information.
Oh yeah, she's great, and she's so dynamic, like exciting to listen to. And we need to have her back to talk about something else.
Yeah,
early childhood, because
we're going to continue having amazing people on the podcast.
Yeah.
And if you, listener, my mom or whoever, have ideas for topics,
my mom has listened to one. She told me.
I don't have time for that.
Your voice is annoying, Rachel. No, she didn't say that. My mom would never say that. My mom is a sweet, wonderful woman.
If you have ideas for topics or questions or different people, or if you want to be on the podcast.
Ooh, even that would be so exciting.
Let us know. We have an email address. I don't know what it is.
I don't
look it up before I say. I think it says it at the end of the episode.
I think it's littlethings@messiah.us. I'm pretty sure. And I think it is on the podcast thing. Otherwise, you can reach either Bethany or I, and it's just our names, rachel.hines@messiah.us or bethany.werner@messiah.us. But yeah,
that would be fun.
It would need to be able to talk about things that people have questions about, or if you have something to share that we could learn about and share with others, Yes. I say that a lot too. That's one thing, because I do listen. I do that a lot. Yes.
That's funny.
I don't know what that is. I don't think I do that in normal speech, but probably because I can hear myself.
Because it sounds cool.
Yeah.
The very little I've listened to, I think I go, way too often.
But you have a great
And I know I say so too often, just in my everyday life. So I imagine it's on here too.
There's something I love about you, and I always notice it in our podcast, and I feel like it's changed my pattern of speech a little bit, is that you, when you're speaking about something, or especially if you're, usually if we're having a conversation, I'm trying not to get too deep, but if we're having a conversation, like we're problem solving together or sharing about it, you'll say something, and instead of saying the word but, you always say and. And it's I don't know why, it's such a positive little twist on.
I do that on purpose. That is
I
true.
love it. So what made you start doing that?
I don't know.
Or have you always done it?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know that I intentionally do it because it does reframe the whole.
Yeah.
And not everything has to be a but.
Right.
The world is full of ands, not buts. Well, they're butts too.
I bet you were saying the world's full of butts. True. But it really, and it's something like I've recognized and noticed in the time that we've been friends and having conversation, and I'll be in a conversation and I'll say, and where I even, you've inspired me to change my pattern of speaking.
Look at that.
I know. So your so's and your ands are great.
My so's are out of control. I do know that.
I don't think so.
Okay, Rachel, I'm going to ask you a question that we did not prep for.
Oh, good. This is exciting. Is this going to be like your Santa hot take? I hope so.
How has God grown you in the past 6 months?
Oh, that's really good. I think through our podcast or just in general?
Just in general.
I think I always had, when we were little, my mom made maybe needlepoint, I don't even know what they were, but pictures in mine and my brother Andrew's room. So we were little, because it was before Pete was born. And it was like a little girl, and it said underneath, "Please be patient. God isn't finished with me yet." And I think about that so often when I think about 16-year-old Rachel, 22-year-old Rachel, 34-year-old Rachel, and going through the stages. And I'm not going to say how old I am now, because 39 is a big number.
Right.
But, and so I feel like I'm really blessed that I can always see God working in my life. But sometimes you go through that period of hardness, and not even for good reason. I'm really busy with work. I'm at work a lot, and I love what I do. I love my job. I feel like God created me to do what I do, but it's a lot of work and it gets exhausting. I think one of the things He's really shown me in the last 6 months is to take care of others, whether it's your family or your employees or the students and families. In my case, in your care, you have to take care of yourself. And that doesn't mean you should be selfish. But we have to, he wants us to rest. He wants us to care for ourselves. And I've read all the books. I listen to all the podcasts, right? And I know that rest doesn't just mean sleeping and those kind of things. But I think even something as simple as like the organization, like going and doing something and feeling that joy just from doing something I love, that I've maybe kind of pushed aside out of I have other responsibilities that have kind of taken some of that over, and that it's not wrong to do some of those things that bring joy and sustain joy in our life so that we can continue to give joy.
You can't give away what you don't have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that, but also the song Gyra. I don't know if you're I love that song. You just give me a look like
because I want you to sing it.
Nope. Nobody wants me to sing that. I want you to sing it. It would be great. That song, like there is, again, early childhood right now is really challenging just because the workforce it's hard to fill positions and we want to fill the right positions. And so there's just a lot of challenging pieces. But to know God is our provider and He'll give us everything that we need. As much as I can be passionate about what I do, I can be passionate about my family, I can be passionate about so many things. I'm not God. And I there are things I can't provide, but he can. And just that constant reminder of, okay, you're not called to be God. You're called to be Rachel and to use the gifts and talents that he gave you and use them to the best of your ability, but then to trust. And sometimes I think I let my controlling nature take over and I forget, nope, step aside and just walk behind God. And the wonderful Bible study that you
Have
gave,
you started it?
I love it so much. Oh, I wish there was some way we could do it on the podcast because
Right.
it's so great. But talking about the wings, that was, I'm on week 2 and she was talking about the shawls and then the being in God's wings. And just, I don't know. That's a terrible description, but I'm glad you know what I'm talking about.
Jesus and Women.
Yes.
That's what the Bible study is called. It's so good. Highly recommend.
And you referenced what she talks about is we should be gazing at God and glancing at ourselves. And I thought, what a simple concept, but a good thing to bring me back to exactly what I want for my life. I want my gaze to be on him and to just kind of glance at myself, not be looking at my belly button all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. He's done a lot of things in the last 6 months, but it's generally another 6 months after that. I'm like, oh, wow. Look
Right.
at that. Look at how amazing. So I'm going to flip this table, no, turn the tables. What have you noticed God doing in your life in the last 6 months?
Well, I would say the last 6 months have been, sorry, I backed away.
Oh, I thought you were moving in for like the kill. I don't know.
Boom. No.
Let me tell you.
I think I don't have a kill, which we've had a lot of, this is my reflection on Christmas break, at least.
Yeah.
That we've had a lot of really sad Christmas breaks. And this was a really joyful one.
Love it.
And I know there are a lot of seasons, and I'm just trying to soak in this very joyful season of we have so many gifts that we've been praying for a long time, and just so thankful of, my mom would say a lot to me, like, God is working in the waiting when we were waiting for a long time. And he worked in ways that we had no idea and could never have guessed or planned or dreamed of.
Sure.
And just to see a lot of that come to fruition of, oh, God is so good and he is so kind and loving to us. And to, when I was going through the struggle, I would say, like, I've never prayed before. I've never prayed like this before.
Yeah.
And something I've been thinking of is I don't want to lose that either. I don't want to stop, because that's so easy of like, okay, thanks God. And now I'm just happy and I can do whatever I want. But to just hold tight to that closeness of, God is close to the brokenhearted, and to just keep that love and intimacy with him in the joy as well is something I've been thinking about.
Well, and okay, I'm going to totally reference this incorrectly, and maybe you can help correct it. But in this Bible study, she talks about going, like, in Middle Eastern culture, they going to the wilderness is like a good thing for them. And they want to take that with them. So that same
and just the history of remembering.
Yeah.
And how the Bible is full of, we remember what God has done in the past, and that's how
and
the
he's
Jewish
faithful.
people lived and continue to live. And we do need to take that time too of remembering how God has been faithful, how God has. We see him fulfill all the prophecies in the Bible, and how he is still present with us today and remembering.
And even in those pressing times, but then in the highs and lows, the peak moments and down in the valleys. I bet this was a joyful.
It was
Christmas.
super fun. We actually did a lot of rollerblading.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did you rollerblade?
At Lincoln Lutheran.
Oh, I was thinking like garage, but
No, we got rollerblades for Christmas, and we would perform in the small gym at Lincoln Lutheran.
I love
to
it.
different songs, and then Michael was the judge. He wouldn't even watch my performances.
He just gave you an automatic 10.
No.
Smart man.
So we had a lot of fun. I haven't rollerbladed since college, probably, but I still got it. I do.
I am of that age. I just remember my mom was probably about the age I am now. And she went with my little brother they had like their school had a roller skating party. And she fell and broke her wrist. And so this is way before cell phones. She called home, and I'm like a bratty teenager. I was probably 16. I don't know. And I'm at home, and she calls, and she's like, Rach, will you go get your dad or whatever? And I'm like, why? And she goes, because I just fell and broke my wrist. And I'm like, oh my gosh, were any of my friends there? And that was my response.
This is all about me.
I know.
That's
and
hilarious.
I think about that all the time. And she reminds me of that all the time too. But I'm like, oh. But then I think, that could be me.
Oh, yeah.
I will come and be your judge. I will not rollerblade with you, but I will be your judge.
I didn't fall once all of Christmas break.
Nicely done.
There were some close calls, but I never did.
Job well done.
Just like how I will never listen to the podcast, I would never watch myself rollerblade either, because I like to live in the reality I've created in my head.
Yes.
That I look really good.
You
and
do.
Cool.
I bet you do. And you sound great on the podcast.
Exactly.
You should we do what we can with our imagination.
Right.
You do sound good. Going forward, what are you hopeful that we can, what's something you want to talk about in a future podcast that you're like, something you're like, I really hope people are interested in this, because I would love to have an expert come and talk to us about this.
Do you have an answer for that question?
I don't know.
We just talked before we started recording of doing one on like bullying and difficult friend relationships.
Yeah. Which I think super helpful.
Super helpful. Super.
Well, and I always tell
common.
people, like, I love early childhood. I like it even high school, but like middle school years are so hard for me, because I just, yeah, I would love to have an expert here. It might be a long episode, because I'd be asking lots of questions and taking lots of notes. But
yeah. Which bullying, we think middle school, but it happens everywhere. Even in preschool.
It does, for sure. And as adults.
And especially as adults.
It does, really. I think it's alive and well.
Yeah.
In all ages.
People are hard.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out who to talk to about that.
Oh, yeah. So
we also talked about doing one on like how to parent athletes and how to respond.
That was Joe's great idea.
Yeah.
I love this one.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Really. So.
And I think that'd be really great. Like, how do you encourage or ask questions, but without
ruining their
lives,
their psyches,
and creating a culture of something different, than we really want. Yeah, I think I know we're going to talk about nutrition and for children. I think that's so important. I suffered from an eating disorder for years and still have a really unhealthy relationship with body image and probably all things eating. And I think that that's so important to help our children have those tools to know what fuels our body and how do we best give that to them so that they can, from a young age, make good, healthy food choices where they're not limiting or identifying themselves based on their body. You know, we know our identity should be found in Christ, and all these little things that try to get in the way of that. So I'm excited for us to have that kind of conversation.
That'd be super, interesting and empowering.
Yeah, for sure. Yay.
Well, who knows what will come in 2024?
I know. It's exciting.
A lot of great conversations.
Yep. And
continue to have. Yeah. And we thank you, listeners, for listening.
Yeah.
If you're out there. Scott won't tell us.
I know. So we can do little shout outs. I know for sure Amy Bannon listens.
Oh, hi, Amy.
Yeah. And Nellie Keller told me that our voices are relaxing to her.
Well, look at that.
So hello, Nellie. Hello, Amy. Now it'll be just like when I do an online workout and they're shouting out to the people on the podcast, even though I know it was like our vodcast, whatever they call them. And they shout out to them, even though I know it was recorded like 2 years before. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe they're going to say my name.
Hey, on podcasts that I listen to, they shout out to the 5-star reviewers. So if you give us a 5-star review, then we'll give you a shout out on the podcast.
Okay, here's the question. Do you know how to find out if we have a 5-star?
No, Scott's never going to tell us.
Well, so
we'll figure it out.
This will be our homework.
Yep.
How do we know if we get a 5-star review? Thanks, Mom.
Yep. They're just all from me or
Bethany Warner.
Obviously not a real person. Yeah. Well,
fabulous. I'm so glad that we're doing this together because I will take any time I can to spend with my good friend Bethany, who I think is so wise. And I always get a little extra information, and that's not bad. I always get extra information.
I always overshare.
No, I always walk around, like, you know how you have those people in your lives when you leave a conversation, even if it's a short conversation or a long one, and you're like, you know what, that was super meaningful to me. Like I feel like a better person for just being in that conversation.
You're so kind to me.
Oh, I mean it. And sometimes it's even just laughter, like being able to laugh with somebody and say, we can laugh at ourselves, or be able to run and say, oh my gosh, you should see the cat video that they're sharing right now in the purple room, because somebody's as ridiculous as you are.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you and everything that you bring to the table with your kindness and encouragement and wisdom. And
I thought you were going to say stupidity.
No.
I'm just kidding.
We need to stop the podcast before.
And it's done. No.
Okay, bye.
This has been a Messiah Lutheran Ministry production. Subscribe to Messiah Lutheran on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also find our worship services and our Sermon Extra podcast by searching Messiah Lincoln on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. If you'd like to know more about Messiah Ministries, visit messiah.us. We'd love to hear from you as well, so please email us at littlethings@messiah.us.